He said he was the next Elon Musk. He promised trucks that ran on air and water, zero emissions, infinite range. The future of transport. Wall Street believed him. Investors poured in billions. Nikola Motors became worth more than Ford before it sold a single truck. But when the cameras stopped rolling, the truth came out. The truck didn't drive. It rolled downhill for the video and the man who sold the dream walked away a billionaire. This is not science fiction. This is the $34 billion lie of Trevor Milton and the illusion of Nikola Motors. Chapter 1. The rise of a false visionary in the summer heat of Arizona. A man stood in front of a shining silver truck, polished metal, futuristic curves, an electric hum in the air. Cameras flashed. Investors clapped. Trevor Milton smiled. This is the future of transportation, he declared. No pollution, no diesel, no limits. Behind him stood the Nikola One, a hydrogen-powered semi-truck that, he claimed, was ready to drive humanity into a cleaner tomorrow. But no one in that crowd knew the truth, that the truck behind him couldn't even move. To the world, Milton looked like a visionary. To those who would later investigate him, he was something else entirely, a master illusionist. The dreamer Trevor Milton wasn't born into power. He grew up in Utah, a restless kid from a working-class family, fascinated by machines and stories of big success. He wasn't an engineer, but he was a dreamer. And like every good dreamer, he learned early that belief was more powerful than facts. In his 20s, Milton dabbled in small ventures, online stores, natural gas conversions, small tech projects. Some succeeded for a while. Most failed. But every time he learned the same lesson. People invest in confidence, not reality. By 2014, the electric revolution was everywhere. Tesla was rising. Elon Musk was turning cars into icons. And the world was hungry for the next clean energy hero. So, Trevor created Nikola Motors, a company named after the same man who inspired Tesla. The symbolism was deliberate. The message was clear. If Elon could build Tesla, Trevor could build Nikola. The pitch: Milton knew how to sell an idea. He spoke like a preacher, mixing tech jargon with emotional conviction. He promised hydrogen electric semi-trucks that could travel over 1,000 miles on a single tank. He said his trucks would recharge in minutes, not hours. He said he had built breakthrough batteries no one else could match. Every claim sounded revolutionary. Every sentence designed to trigger one thought. This man is changing the world. He built mock-ups, CGI videos, and sleek renderings. He said Nikola had contracts with major logistics companies. He claimed hundreds of pre-dash orders. To investors, it looked like Tesla for trucks, only cleaner, faster, and cheaper. To Trevor Milton, it was the performance of a lifetime. Selling the future. By 2016, Milton's charisma was unstoppable. He stood on stage under flashing lights, wearing a black suit and a confident grin, announcing Nikola's first truck, the Nikola One. He called it a fully functioning prototype. Crowds cheered. Cameras rolled. But behind the scenes, engineers whispered. The Nikola One didn't drive. It had no motor, no hydrogen fuel cell, no drivetrain. It was just a shell, a hollow body with a digital dashboard and wires that went nowhere. But it looked real. And that was enough, because on Wall Street, optics matter more than engines. When the event ended, Milton left the stage as a new tech messiah. Articles hailed him as the next Elon Musk. Business Insider, Forbes, and CNBC praised his vision. Investors started calling. Big investors. He told them Nikola wasn't just a truck company. It was an energy company. He promised hydrogen fuel stations across the country. He said they would produce fuel cheaper than gasoline. He told analysts Nikola would soon dominate both trucking and energy infrastructure. Every lie was wrapped in the language of innovation. And it worked. The money floods in by 2018. Nikola Motors was everywhere. Trevor Milton hosted factory tours, investor meetings, and flashy press events. He posted videos from the company's desert test site, smooth, cinematic clips showing sleek vehicles under bright sun. None of them actually drove. But no one noticed, because the illusion was too powerful. Milton began selling the idea of pre-orders, claiming fleets like Anheuser-Busch had reserved thousands of trucks worth billions in future revenue. He showed charts predicting explosive growth. He claimed Nikola's hydrogen network would make electric charging obsolete. The truth? Those pre-orders weren't contracts. They were non-binding letters of interest. Nothing more than polite promises from curious partners. But to the untrained eye, it looked like billions in future revenue. And that illusion fed itself. Investors saw demand. Demand attracted more investors. And Nikola's valuation exploded. By the end of 2019. Milton was courting major automakers and global financiers. He didn't have a factory, but he had something better: momentum. The SPAC era in early 2020. A financial shortcut appeared on Wall Street, the SPAC, or Special Purpose Acquisition Company. SPACs allowed startups to go public without the heavy regulations and disclosures of a traditional IPO. For a company like Nikola, this was perfect. Milton partnered with Vectoik, a SPAC led by former General Motors executives. Within months, Nikola was publicly listed on the Nasdaq under the ticker NKLA. Evaluation? Over $30 billion, more than Ford. And they hadn't sold a single truck. Trevor Milton was now a paper billionaire, worth nearly $8 billion. He posted selfies on social media, grinning beside his trucks. He was being interviewed as the face of the clean energy revolution. "We're going to change the world," he told CNBC. "Tesla focuses on cars. We're going to own the trucking industry." The stock soared. Retail investors bought in. People believed. But the empire he built wasn't made of steel and hydrogen. It was made of tweets, PowerPoints, and borrowed credibility. The big reveal that same year. Nikola released a promotional video titled Nikola One in Motion. It showed the company's flagship semi-truck speeding down a highway in the desert. Sun shining, the hum of clean energy filling the air. Investors loved it. The stock jumped again. But something was off. Months later, investigative journalists and short sellers began asking a simple question. If Nikola's truck was real, why hadn't anyone seen it drive in person? And that's when the cracks appeared. Whistleblowers revealed the secret. The truck in the video wasn't driving under power. It was towed to the top of a hill and filmed rolling downhill. There was no motor, no hydrogen, just gravity. The so-called Nikola One in Motion was a stunt, a moving lie. The storming September 2020. A small New York-based research firm called Hindenburg Research published a report that sent shockwaves through the financial world. Its title, Nikola: How to Parlay an Ocean of Lies into a Partnership with the Largest Auto OEM in America. The report detailed dozens of false statements made by Milton, fake technology demos, exaggerated claims, and fabricated partnerships. It included whistleblower testimonies and documents showing Nikola had no proprietary tech. Everything: the fuel cell, the battery, even the hydrogen production system had been exaggerated or entirely invented. They accused Trevor Milton of running an elaborate fraud. Modern-day Tyrannos. A story sold too perfectly to be true. The fallout was immediate. Nikola's stock crashed nearly 40% in a week. General Motors, which had just announced a $2 billion deal with Nikola, began re-evaluating the partnership. Regulators opened investigations. And within days, the same man who stood on stage as a clean energy hero resigned. Trevor Milton, founder and chairman of Nikola Motors, stepped down from the company he created publicly. He said he was leaving to protect shareholders. Privately, insiders said he saw the walls closing in, the billion-dollar exit when Milton resigned. He wasn't empty-handed, despite the chaos. He still held hundreds of millions in Nikola stock, assets worth over $1 billion. He retreated to his Utah mansion, far from the headlines, surrounded by cars, horses, and armed security. Nikola tried to move on without him, appointing new leadership and distancing itself from its founder. But the damage was done. The company that once claimed to lead the green revolution was now the face of startup deception. Trevor Milton had done what few ever could. He built a $34 billion empire out of thin air. The fallout begins as journalists dug deeper. They found more lies. Milton had claimed Nikola had its own proprietary battery technology. It didn't. He said they were producing hydrogen at less than $4 a kilogram. They weren't producing any. He told interviewers. He had built the most advanced truck ever made. It was still a non-functional prototype. The SEC began its investigation. The Department of Justice soon followed. But Milton didn't go silent. On social media, he ranted about short sellers and media hit jobs. He compared himself to Elon Musk and Steve Jobs, insisting he was misunderstood. But investors weren't listening anymore. Their money was gone. Their trust shattered. Nikola's stock fell from $90 to under $10 within months. Billions evaporated. And the dream, the zero-emission revolution, turned into a corporate ghost story. The legend of the lie in the end. Trevor Milton's genius wasn't engineering. It was performance. He knew that in an era obsessed with innovation, confidence was currency. And he spent it lavishly. He didn't need working trucks. He just needed faith. He sold the future, and people paid for it in billions. His rise was meteoric. His fall inevitable. But for a moment, he had everyone fooled. Nikola Motors became a symbol of a generation that believed too fast and questioned too late. And as investigators closed in, one truth became clear. The truck never drove, the dream never worked, and the empire was built on air. Chapter 2. The fall begins. Lies, lawsuits, and a billionaire's exit. The first cracks didn't appear on stage, or in earnings reports, or inside laboratories. They began with whispers among engineers, investors, and former employees. But those whispers soon grew louder. And then everything collapsed. Trevor Milton had promised the world a hydrogen-powered revolution. And infrastructure, network spanning continents. And semi-trucks that would drive themselves with zero emissions. He had the suit. The stage presence. The Twitter flair, and a $30 billion company built entirely on belief. But belief without proof is dangerous. In September 2020, just days after Nikola announced a $2 billion deal with General Motors, a little-known short seller named Hindenburg Research dropped a bombshell report that would shatter everything. Its title? Nikola: How to Parlay an Ocean of Lies into a Partnership with the largest auto OEM in America. It read like a crime novel. With damning evidence. Internal emails. Text messages. Whistleblower accounts. And one brutal revelation after another. Hindenburg's conclusion was blunt. Nikola was a fraud. Trevor Milton was a conman, and the entire company was a house of cards. The fake truck that changed everything, the report exposed Nikola's flagship truck. The Nikola 1 has a non-functional shell. Trevor Milton had told audiences in 2016, on stage in front of cameras and journalists, "This thing fully functions and works," which is really incredible. But insiders knew better. The truck had no drivetrain, no hydrogen fuel cell, no batteries, not even a power cable. It was, essentially, a prop. And the now infamous Nikola 1 in motion video where the truck appeared to be driving on a road. That wasn't innovation. That was gravity. The truck had been towed to the top of a hill and filmed rolling downhill, with the camera tilted to make it look like it was accelerating under power. It was a deception so bold, so brazen, that it almost seemed unbelievable, until you saw the emails. Behind the curtain, Hindenburg's report included leaked internal communications where employees openly joked about the truck being dead weight. One former engineer wrote, "We don't have anything that actually works. We're just putting lipstick on a pig." Milton, on the other hand, continued to tweet as if Nikola was months away from mass production. He doubled down, claimed Nikola was building proprietary inverters, next-gen batteries, and breakthrough hydrogen stations. But Hindenburg revealed that even the hydrogen production claims were exaggerated, or outright lies. Nikola had no capacity to create hydrogen at scale. No contracts. No stations. No production facilities. The inverters? Rebranded components made by another company, with the original logos scratched off, and the revolutionary battery tech he boasted about on national TV? It didn't exist. Nikola had no unique battery tech. No patents. No research team. They were still sourcing off-the-shelf parts, while marketing them as breakthroughs. The market reacts. The Hindenburg report hit like a grenade. Nikola's stock, which had once soared past $90 per share, began to freefall. Within days, it had lost over $8 billion in market value. Shareholders were furious. The public was confused. And regulators? They were paying attention. The CC opened an official investigation. So did the U.S. Department of Justice. And the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office started gathering evidence. In the face of this rising storm, Trevor Milton made one final move. He resigned. The billion-dollar exit on September 21, 2020, just 10 days after the Hindenburg report. Milton stepped down as executive chairman of Nikola. He issued a carefully worded statement. The focus should be on the company and its world-changing mission. Not me, but it wasn't altruism. It was strategy. Because when Trevor Milton resigned, he didn't walk away empty-handed. He left with 92 million shares of Nikola stock worth over $1 billion at the time. Even as the company cratered, Milton cashed out. He bought ranches. He purchased luxury real estate. He posted about God, America, and innovation on social media. He claimed he was innocent, and yet the walls were closing in. The legal machine turns on in July 2021. Nearly a year after the expose, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York unsealed a federal indictment. The charges? Securities fraud, wire fraud, and making false and misleading statements. The indictment read like a greatest hits of Trevor Milton's lies. Prosecutors allege that he misled investors about having in-house tech. He exaggerated production timelines. He claimed trucks were fully functional when they weren't. Pumped stock prices through false Twitter posts and media appearances. He used celebrity status to lure retail investors into buying stock, and perhaps most damning of all, he wasn't just misleading Wall Street. He was lying to ordinary people, retail investors. Everyday Americans who believed in the dream. The set filed a separate civil complaint, calling Milton the mastermind of a scheme that defrauded investors of billions. If convicted, he faced up to 20 years in federal prison. The trial begins in late 2022. Trevor Milton's criminal trial began in a Manhattan courtroom. The prosecution called dozens of witnesses, former employees, engineers, investors. They showed emails. They played videos. They dissected tweets. They proved that Milton had knowingly misled the public. In one message, he told a colleague, "We can show the truck rolling. They don't need to know how." The courtroom was tense. Milton's lawyers tried to paint him as a visionary, a dreamer misunderstood, but the evidence told a different story, not of a genius, but of a man who used confidence as currency, a man who sold fiction as fact, a man who believed that in the age of Twitter and hype, you didn't need to build the thing, just convince the world that you had. The aftershock. By the end of 2022, Nikola's stock had lost over 95% of its value from peak. The GM partnership was canceled. The Badger pickup never built. The hydrogen network never materialized. The factories delayed or scrapped. Trevor Milton had left behind a company in ruins, a fan base betrayed. And a new chapter in Silicon Valley's darkest playbook. The story of Nikola wasn't about failure. It was about fraud. And Milton? He didn't just fall from grace. He engineered his own collapse. Chapter 3, Fallout, the trial. The victims and the illusion of innovation. Courtroom wasn't just about Trevor Milton. It was about the people who believed. Him. The farmers. The truckers. The teachers who bought shares after watching interviews. The students who invested their savings because they believed in the green revolution. Trevor Milton stood accused. But the real damage had been done long before the trial began. This wasn't just a corporate scandal. This was a personal disaster for thousands of investors. And for many, it all started with hope. The illusion that sold $1 billion lie. Milton wasn't your typical executive. He didn't speak in numbers. He spoke in dreams. No emissions. No pollution. No oil wars. Just clean hydrogen, powerful trucks, and a brighter tomorrow. He painted a future that felt revolutionary. And people believed it. But it wasn't real. The hydrogen breakthrough? Fake. The battery tech? Fabricated. The production timelines? Fiction. And yet, he was everywhere. Podcasts. News interviews. Tech panels. He wasn't just pitching Nikola. He was pitching himself as a visionary. And the media hungry for the next Elon Musk ran with it. A community betrayed in court. Victims testified about how they invested based on Milton's public statements. One retired truck driver explained how he sold part of his $401K to buy Nikola stock after Milton promised that the Badger pickup would launch next year. Another, a former Navy veteran, said he'd believed Nikola was the Tesla of trucks and poured in $40,000. His life savings. These weren't whales or hedge funds. These were everyday people. Milton had tweeted constantly during Nikola's rise, praising God, promoting hydrogen, and celebrating stock milestones. NKLA to the moon. This is just the beginning. He called himself a man of faith and patriotism. He talked about legacy, about family, about changing the world. And that made him seem trustworthy. But when things fell apart, he disappeared. The trial. Evidence and exposure. The trial dragged on for weeks. Prosecutors laid out a meticulous case. Emails showing Milton knew the truck was non-functional communics, where he directed media strategies to hide technical limitations. Whistleblowers who detailed how Milton pressured engineers to just make it look good for video. One damning exchange showed Milton responding to concerns about battery supply. We don't need it to run, just need it to roll. The jury heard about stock manipulation. They saw how Milton timed major announcements with stock option unlock dates allowing him to sell for maximum gain before the truth came out. They watched clips from interviews where Milton made claims contradicted by Nikola's own engineers. And through it all, the defense tried to spin the same narrative. Trevor is a dreamer. He may have exaggerated, but he believed in the mission, but it wasn't enough. The verdict in October 2022. The jury reached its decision. Trevor Milton was found guilty on multiple counts of securities fraud and wire fraud. The judge called the case a clear example of deceptive innovation. And in 2023, Milton was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison, with additional financial penalties expected to follow. Wasn't the decades-long sentence some expected, but for many, it was justice delayed, yet delivered. Milton maintained his innocence until the end, but the verdict was clear. He built a $30 billion company on lies. And people paid the price. What was left behind? Nikola Motors survived the storm, but barely. The stock now trades at a fraction of its former value. The Badger pickup was officially canceled. Hydrogen plans scaled down or abandoned. Leadership completely replaced. And investors burned. Nikola S name is now etched into the same wall as Terranos, Enron, and BitConnect, a monument to ambition unchecked by ethics. But Milton's trial did something else. It forced an entire industry to ask deeper questions. Can hype be regulated? Should executives be criminally liable for marketing lies? Where is the line between optimism and fraud? For startups and investors alike, the message was loud. If your product doesn't work, no amount of charisma can save you. Chapter 4. The system that allowed it. Media, markets, and the myth of the tech messiah. Trevor Milton didn't rise alone. He was lifted by headlines, cameras, investors, and influencers. By a system designed to celebrate bold claims and punish hesitation. He didn't break into the spotlight. He was handed the microphone. This wasn't just about one man. This was about how easily the machine gets fooled. And how willingly it plays along. Let's start with the media. The media mirage from the moment Nikola hit the headlines. Journalists couldn't get enough. Hydrogen-powered revolution. Elon Musk has competition. Nikola to disrupt the entire trucking industry. Dozens of articles echoed Trevor Milton's words, rarely questioning them. Why? Because he said all the right things. Zero emissions. American-made. Solving the climate crisis. Buzzwords became facts. Claims became copy. Journalists craving the next big startup rarely asked to see proof. At one point, Forbes featured Milton in their most promising CEOs list. Business Insider called Nikola the most exciting EV company after Tesla. CNBC gave him airtime without fact-checking even basic claims. When the Nikola One truck was revealed in 2016, media outlets reported that it drove on stage under its own power. It didn't. It was pushed into place, then powered on with lights and screens faking functionality. Nobody asked to test drive it. Nobody peeked under the hood. Because no one wanted to miss the story. The myth was more valuable than the truth. The Wall Street effect. Media hype wasn't the only enabler. The financial markets were ready to believe because belief meant money. Nikola went public via SPAC, Special Purpose Acquisition Company, a faster, less regulated way to hit the stock exchange. No product. No revenue. Just projections, promises, and potential. And Wall Street? It loved it. NKLA stock exploded in 2020. At its peak, the company was valued at over $34 billion more. Then Ford. All without selling a single truck. Retail. Investors flooded in after seeing YouTube videos and Twitter threads, promising the next Tesla. Institutional. Investors joined too. Afraid of missing out, even GM struck a partnership deal, planning to help manufacture Nikola's Badger pickup. But when Hindenburg Research released its bombshell report in September 2020 alleging that Nikola was an intricate fraud, everything fell apart. And suddenly, the markets asked the questions they should have asked years ago. The influencer echo chamber, YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, everywhere people talked money. Nikola was being hyped. Finance influencers made videos like, Nikola will 10x by 2025. Why Trevor Milton is smarter than Musk. This truck will crush Tesla semi. Referral links flooded. Bios. Affiliate codes. Stock buying. Tutorials. Some influencers had no idea how Nikola's tech worked. Others didn't care. As long as the stock was rising, views were climbing, and ad dollars were flowing. They weren't journalists. They weren't engineers. They were amplifiers. Milton played them like instruments. He'd appear on podcasts. Reply to fans on Twitter. Drop just enough vague info to keep the speculation alive. Big announcement coming next month. We've solved the battery problem. Stay tuned. People will eat their words when they see what we've built. He became a character, and people rooted for him, not because of the trucks, but because of the story, the myth of the tech messiah in Silicon Valley. There's a dangerous archetype, the visionary founder. The world-changing genius, the man, and it's almost always a man, who thinks different. Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. Jeff Bezos. Mark Zuckerberg. These figures aren't just CEOs, they're symbols. And Trevor Milton knew that. He mimicked the wardrobe, the confidence, the TED Talk energy. He talked like Musk, tweeted like Musk, promised like Musk. But unlike Musk, Milton had nothing to back it up. Yet the myth was so powerful. It didn't matter, because in the age of disruption, style can outshine substance for a while. Milton wasn't building trucks. He was building belief. And for a time, belief was enough. Why it keeps happening. Nikola wasn't the first. Before it, there was the Ranos. After it, there was FTX. Each story follows the same pattern. A charismatic founder, a big, world-saving promise, hype-fed valuations, lack of oversight, collapse, confusion, anger, regret. But why do we keep falling for it? Because we want to believe. We want heroes. We want revolutions. We want to be early to the next big thing. And the system, media, markets, influencers rewards boldness, not accuracy. Milton wasn't punished for lying until it was too late. Until after the IPO. After the billions. After the damage. And by then, the cycle had already begun elsewhere. The real danger. Trevor Milton's biggest weapon wasn't fraud. It was charisma. He didn't need to be a tech genius. He just needed people to believe he was. He built a kingdom out of press clippings, stock charts, and carefully curated interviews. And once the illusion took hold, it became harder to break than any real machine. That's what makes these stories so dangerous. They don't just cost money. They cost trust. And once trust is gone, it doesn't come back easily. Chapter 5, Legacy of the Lie. What Trevor Milton left behind, he didn't just walk out with billions. He walked out with the faith of millions shattered. Trevor Milton's fall wasn't just a cautionary tale for investors. It became a blueprint for how easily we crown false prophets in the age of disruption. And what happens when the illusion breaks. Nikola still exists, but it's a ghost of what it once was. Let's break down what Trevor Milton left behind economically, legally, psychologically, and culturally. a company without a soul when Milton resigned from Nikola in September 2020. The company tried to distance itself. They said they'd move forward, focus on real technology, rebuild credibility. But the stain was permanent. Nikola's stock plummeted from over $90 to under $1. The Badger truck was canceled. Major partnerships, like the one with General Motors, fell apart or were dramatically scaled back. The dream was gone. The trucks that once promised to reshape logistics never arrived. Nikola started manufacturing BEV, battery electric, trucks in 2022, but deliveries were minimal. Then came recalls, battery fire incidents, and production slowdowns. The company had to lay off workers, close facilities, and issue additional stock to stay afloat. By 2024, it was no longer a tech disruptor. It was a struggling startup trying to survive a story it no longer controlled. The legal fallout: Trevor Milton was indicted by a federal grand jury in 2021 on 3 counts of criminal fraud and 1 count of securities fraud. The charges? Lying about virtually every core aspect of Nikola's business to inflate its stock price. In 2022, he was convicted on 3 counts of wire fraud and 1 of securities fraud. Prosecutors showed evidence of fabricated claims about proprietary battery tech, false statements about hydrogen infrastructure, deceptive demo videos, including the infamous truck rolling downhill, tweets, and interviews designed to mislead retail investors. Milton's defense: he believed in the mission, but the jury didn't buy it. In 2023, the court sentenced him to 4 years in prison, plus financial penalties and asset forfeitures. He became the first EV Tech founder sentenced to prison for misleading investors. Notably, this was one of the first post-SPAC criminal convictions, setting a precedent for what happens when public markets meet unfounded promises. Psychological fallout: the damage we don't see. Thousands of investors lost money, but many lost more than that. They lost belief. Trevor Milton didn't just sell a product. He sold a vision of clean energy, American innovation, and economic revolution. People wanted it to be true. Truck drivers believed they'd be part of something big. Retail investors believed they were getting in early. Even some Nikola employees, many of whom were innocent engineers and designers, believed they were building history. The fraud was exposed. That belief turned into bitterness. Reddit threads filled with regret. Twitter timelines flooded with anger. People spoke of losing savings, retirement funds, college tuitions. Some believed so hard they couldn't believe the truth even after the conviction. That's the thing with charismatic fraud. It's not just financial, it's emotional. And Milton manipulated that emotion like a maestro. Broken trust in innovation. The Trevor Milton case didn't just damage Nikola. It damaged the entire AV and clean tech space. For every serious engineer working on hydrogen fuel, there were now whispers. Is this just another Nikola? Companies like Rivian and Lucid were suddenly under more pressure to prove real progress. Investors became cautious. Regulators tightened scrutiny on SPAC deals. The SPAC boom that Milton helped ignite in 2020? By 2023, it had cooled dramatically. Dozens of SPAC-backed startups collapsed or were forced into mergers and penny stock status. Milton became the poster child for the dangers of hype. And the media? They started asking harder questions. But too late. The damage had been done. The influence on the next generation of grifters. Ironically, Trevor Milton's story didn't scare everyone. To some, it became a playbook. He raised billions, lived like a billionaire. Got 4 years. To cynics, that math made sense. Since his fall, several other high-profile collapses followed similar beats. overpromising. Futuristic tech using influencers and social media to build. Hype going public before having a real product failing sometimes. Spectacularly once the truth emerged you'd think Milton's downfall would be a deterrent, but for some, it was a template. That's perhaps the darkest part of his legacy. The cultural scar in Silicon Valley and beyond. Trevor Milton is now shorthand for a specific type of fraud. Confidence without competence. He had the look, he had the language, he had the attitude, but he didn't have the truck. And for a time, no one cared. He became a symbol of what happens when belief outpaces verification. And even today, in startup boardrooms and pitch meetings, you'll hear the warnings. This better not be another Nikola. Are we vetting this like we didn't vet Milton? We need to see the demo, don't take their word for it. The ghost of his truck still rolls downhill in the collective memory of tech. Final reflection. What we learned, Trevor. Milton wasn't a one-off. He was a mirror reflecting the system that rewarded bold lies over quiet truths. We built him up, we believed him, and we paid for it. Nikola's collapse should have been the end. But stories like this keep happening because the real issue isn't trucks or technology. It's trust. And when trust is up for sale, someone's always willing to buy it cheap and sell it high.